Welcome to Digital to Foot Traffic. I am Kevin Shi.
And I am Scott Jensen. We are digital marketers with massive experience in running brick and mortar stores.
Join us each episode as we explore the latest digital marketing trends and uncover strategies from the best in the industry. Welcome to another episode of Digital to Foot Traffic. I'm your host, Kevin Shi.
And I'm Scott Jensen. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, and we're back with Gabe again for a second part of the PPC, the search podcast. We had one the last week, and we're continuing with this one. Can you elaborate how can you steer customers to your campaign?
Sure. So, for example, if you're having your dry cleaner example on one side of the freeway, and it's really difficult for individuals on the other side of the freeway to get to your location, you can. That's one small example of let's adjust our targeting to make sure we're only getting customers that it's feasible or it makes sense for them to get to our location via our targeting and some of our settings. That's one small example of let's steer the traffic in that regard, because you're going to have your campaign that's going to be tightly targeted with a tight radius. Then you have your zip campaign that's targeting a specific zip code, and your campaign that's targeting a city. You don't want the city campaign stealing any of your zip or your radius target, and so that's where you can take advantage of some targeting exclusions. That's how you steer the traffic, the tight traffic, to the tight campaigns, and let the broad city traffic land in the broad city space. Again, all of these are having unique landing pages, target exclusions to make sure that you're sending your visitors, your traffic, into the right campaigns, making sure that your data set is how you want to look.
Okay. I got a question for you. Do you agree with my statement that search or PPC is only for products that people need and searching for, versus like a display ad or like a social ad where I don't really need it, but I'm enticed by it, just like a very nice restaurant, right? I'm not really searching for it, but if I see that a lot on social, like a display ad, and my friends are going there, hey, I'm gonna give it a try. If I have some kind of a product like that, I guess search is not so useful for that. Maybe except as a backup strategy, like research list remarketing, but only for the particular things that they need, like storage or moving or laundry. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that a paid search campaign can work for pretty much any industry. It just depends on the types of terms and things that you're wanting to display and show individuals, right? So talking about a specific food location, you don't necessarily have to spend tons and tons of money on people who are going to search for Chinese food.
Okay.
But if they're looking for
your name,
right, your specific name, some of the brand elements are very good because you only have so much real estate on that search engine results page. You have your paid ad, you have your map listing, you have some SEO going there. You're seen more as an authority. But I think there's also elements, and I think that Google does a really neat job of doing this, where if you are wanting to drive some visitors to your location, turn those campaigns on during or an hour before lunchtime, when people may be looking for kind of food near them, especially if there's travelers or visitors. And Google has some really cool ad extensions that actually have timers, or you can say, we're doing a special unique sale or a deal today only. And you're like, that's cool. Let's try that place out. So you don't have to spend tons of money on general crazy broad terms. Okay. Get specific, get tight, and use some of the cool features that Google enables.
Okay. Another question is, I remember like big company like ExtraSpace. I had about 65 sites, right? I can't even think of more than 2,000 keywords, and I don't understand how ExtraSpace or public storage can have 1 million keywords. Can you elaborate on that? Like what is it all long tails, or how do you generate these keywords? Is the difference between 2,000 and 1 million is a lot? And what about like tools like Kenshu or Moran? What do you think, like for a mid-sized company, for retailers, how would they approach these, the PPC strategy?
Sure. I think that there's a fine dance you have to play between data scarcity and the number of keywords that you're trying to create, or kind of the segmentation that you're wanting to take advantage of. Okay. Because the more segmented that you can be, the better. And the more locations that you have, even if you have 10 locations or facilities in a specific area, they can help and benefit each other. And so a lot of the times you're finding these terms where they are a lot of the times going to be your storage, self-storage, storage unit, storage facility, climate storage. I could go down and, I can list off 20 keywords that are going to be your kind of general broad keywords. But then if you're going to be adding some long tail elements on top of that, like the city name or the district name, as well as kind of state abbreviation or location elements. Sometimes the zip code, if you're in the U.S. or whatever kind of location terms that Hong Kong may have, that instantly doubles, triples, quadruples your terms, right?
Yeah.
And then there's also going to be instances of match type optimization. Yep. And that's something that I think a lot of people really struggle with, where, they're not taking advantage of all the different match types that exist. Yep. And again, from there comes this whole idea of steering your traffic. I'm all about getting as granular and minute as possible. And so if I'm going to have a phrase match term that says, self-storage, Irvine, California, I'm also going to have a phrase version of that and an exact match version of that and a broad match modified version of that. And then within that same ad group, I'm going to create a phrase match negative within my broad match modified term to make sure that my keyword, the person who comes in on that phrase term, lands inside my phrase keyword and is not going to hit my broad keyword. So that's how you expand and grow.
So that's how Extra Space got its million keyword.
Sure. When I very first came there, we started with a couple million keywords.
Couple million? Oh my God.
Let's get granular up in here. And we jumped to 40 million.
Holy shit.
Gained all kinds of insight and learned and was able to say, let's group these pieces or this, this element together. And so we started grouping things like broad match modified with phrase. To kind of understand their performance was similar. And now, at the end of the day, they're running about 10 million keywords, getting enough data to make good decisions.
But I came from the school of thought, and maybe I'm very preliminary, like a basic on this, is if you have keywords there that doesn't convert for a few months and they convert like once every 3 months, right? That ruins your overall quality score in that ad group. Isn't that true? So that's why I was reluctant to put so many keywords there. If I have all these keywords,
your quality score is not going to be dependent on conversion rate. Okay. Your quality score is all about how relevant your keyword and your terms are to your landing page and the search query that the individual used, right? Okay. And so we may have a bunch of keywords, for example, your 5x5 storage, your 10x5 storage, your 10x15 storage. These are keywords that may not necessarily get a ton of traffic.
Yep.
And like you're saying, may convert once every couple of months.
Yep.
But as long as they're converting at a cost per acquisition that makes sense, let them stick around.
So that's not going to ruin the overall quality score of that group, right? So maybe that was a common mistake I thought.
No, so your quality score is going to be at the keyword level, and it's based off of the ad copy within those ad groups is a big piece of it as well. Okay. If you are grouping your ad group where it says 10 by 10 storage is in the same ad group as storage broad match, that's not very relevant and tight. Okay. So, we're going to segment our 5x5s from our 10x10s, from our 10x15s, from storage sizes, from storage near me, from storage unit, self-storage unit. Those are all in different ad groups and different pieces because you should only have keywords in an ad group that you feel comfortable that the ad is going to represent in a perfect way, at a perfect match. If my ad says anything about climate storage, those are for my climate storage keywords. Okay. You're going to try to be as granular and smart as possible. Again, trying to steer away from data scarcity that you may be creating. And so it's all about what keywords are earning the data for me to kind of give them more attention and more focus, right? You can start very tightly themed and watch those terms. If they're not getting a lot of traffic, as long as they're not hurting you in regards to cost, then they're not going to be dinging you in regards to quality score.
Oh, okay. Scott.
So I think that, Kevin, we're starting to see just kind of a glimpse under the covers of how, at the beginning of this, I said Gabe thinks about this differently than anybody else I've ever met, as far as not taking what kind of gets passed down, but rather really understanding what can be done with paid search and creating a program that maximizes that. So, Gabe, I'm curious, from your standpoint, where do you see local paid search going in the next, say, 2 years? What do you know is coming down the pipeline, and how is it going to change? Assuming that this stuff's not slowing down. In fact, rather it's speeding up in as far as a change standpoint is concerned. Where do you think things are going?
Personal. Things are going to get more and more personal. And creating these structures that have the segmentation, that's my big word of the day, segmentation. Everything needs to be split and segmented. It's a big OCD world for me. Where everything is about to become more and more personal. And so you can, more than just your general ad about climate storage or, specific hardware tools or pieces, you're going to get more personal as you understand the types of customers that are coming in and be able to have ad copy and messaging that's specific and direct to them. We haven't really talked too much about audiences or remarketing or all the really fabulous tools and pieces that Google enables, but all the things that they're creating and moving towards is customization and being more personal with your searchers and your users. They have things like ad variations and ad customizers that you can use, all kinds of data feeds that take in insight from, if it's self-fed from you, you're the owner of the business who understands your customers, your clients, to be able to say, this is my specific messaging, and have dynamic ad copy that's related specifically to that searcher, that user. So it's a more personal message. I think everything's just going to get a lot more personal.
The number one thing that would entice a potential lawsuit in Hong Kong is dynamic keyword insertion, because most competitors or operators in Hong Kong don't know what dynamic keyword insertion means, and they think these operators are maliciously targeting their storage facility, and by saying, oh, you're looking for ABC storage, why don't you come to 123 storage instead? So they thought it was personal. So they would give them a legal letter, and so they would yell and shout. And I've been telling everyone, hey, this is part of business. This is Google dynamic keyword insertion, man. and they don't understand. And
that's a piece of it, right?
Yeah.
Where, sorry to jump in here, but
okay.
DKI is a little bit different than some of the elements I'm talking about in regards to getting personal with somebody, right? Yeah. And so it gets to a point where you have some remarketing or some kind of audience targeting where you understand that this person is searching for you based off of they're doing a move, right? Based off of information they from them. So that your personal messages are like, hey, you're looking to move? You need a place to store stuff? Let's do it, right? I personally try to, I'm a bit of a control freak. Again, the segmentation, the OCD, I don't want to relinquish too much control. And so I actually don't use DKI very often.
Okay.
Because I want to be in control. I want to say, this is what my users are seeing. This is how I want to take advantage of it. And if you build your account structure right and are targeting the right ways, DKI isn't going to give you a higher click-through rate because you've built things appropriately. Normally, if you have just a broad general structure with random general keywords and normal ads with some DKI, you will get a higher click-through rate because, again, they're seeing, I searched this, my ad says this, my landing page led me to this, this jives, I like it. If you have a really structured and segmented structure, you'll get the same results, but you'll be in control and actually can do some real cool ad testing.
And based on what I've learned from Scott throughout the years is each keyword campaign needs to be matched with the appropriate landing page. So whatever you search, like you're asking for the headlines, the landing page has to match. If they don't convert, then the remarketing ad has to match based on your previous campaign. And even if they call you, right, what you're going to talk about needs to match what was said in the campaign. So I guess you have multiple landing pages, multiple remarketing ads just to fit the entire consumer journey has to be identical, right?
Definitely, 100%.
Mm-hmm. So okay. Let me ask you another question about online, offline. In Hong Kong, everything is very small. So we do a lot of TV ads. We do a lot of minibus, billboard ads. Does your customer do that? I mean, retailers do a lot of that because like in Hong Kong, it's cheap, right? Do you guys do some kind of tracking between online to offline conversions? I mean, the most I can do is, hey, have you seen my ad, my TV ad before? And we just mark it down. That's about it. Do you guys have anything, a relation or an example about that?
In regards to paid search specifically, or are you asking, do we do some of those kind of direct advertising elements as well?
No, do you do any campaigns that matches like your customer's offline campaign as well? Like for us, for example, we have a central theme every year. So this year, like last year was rent 2 months, get third month off, right? So my TV campaign is the same, the billboards is the same, and then even for my pay search, even the heading is the same. So everything looks like a consistent theme, right? Have you had any working with people who has done one central campaign, central theme? Have you have to match with them, and how do you track like does a TV or billboard helps or not?
Sure. I haven't had too much experience with this. I have had a couple of clients who, would run a billboard, and we would make sure that some of our paid search campaigns in that area had similar messaging. And then, on the billboard, sometimes we would include a unique coupon code or element that, that they could use, and that would kind of give some tracking insight. On the paid search side, again, paid search is a lot easier to track and measure. And so some of those kind of billboards or, signs on the sides of trucks, sometimes we do a coupon code element, or, more often than not, a lot of the managers I work with, they'll always almost do a little bit of a an inquiry interview every time they get a rental, saying, "Oh, cool, where'd you hear from us? Where'd you see us? What were you doing? What were you looking at?" And they'll get insight from the customer as well. But yeah, I mean, you hit on the head. It can be very difficult to track, exactly how effective some of your TV elements were, or your flyers, or your billboards.
And what kind of attribution models are your customers using? Are they using last click or some kind of like a basic form of attribution? Because I assume like a paid search may be most people's last conversion, but there's other things that attributes to it, like SEO or display ad. What kind of things does your customer do?
Sure. I mean, attribution is a big buzzword right now. Everybody does last click, and it's the worst thing ever. Unfortunately, it's the easiest thing to set up, but it gives so little insight, and that's where it can be really frustrating. What's really cool is that Google and a lot of other bid platforms, actual bid tools like you're mentioning, the Marins, the Kenchus, the double-click searches, are trying to really tackle this attribution piece and kind of build on top of those elements. And so within Google right now, even when you set up conversions, you can tie things into Google Analytics, and you can actually specify a time decay or a kind of a U-shaped first click, etc. All these different attribution models that are going to be significantly better than your last click. The most ideal situation is going to be a data-driven attribution model, which isn't going to necessarily be your U-shape or your time decay or your first or last click. It's going to be based off of the data that you're getting that's unique to you and your business. And there's a lot of work that goes into that, and it can be pretty difficult, but it's doable and feasible and worthwhile, because from those elements, you can just understand exactly the point of attribution is, where should I be spending my money? What's driving me the most value?
Scott, what's your take on pay search, like PPC, fitting into the whole attribution puzzle? Because usually that's last click. You got anything to add?
Yeah. So this is something you and I talk about, and I think we've talked about on this podcast before as well. Attribution models mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and it's one thing to talk about, hey, the person first came in on a organic link, and then they came back on a paid search link, and then we sent them an email, and they came back on that, and then they saw 3 display ads before they clicked on the display ad, and then they came back from a social media campaign before they converted, right? And it's, how do you provide attribution to all those? Well, that's a little bit more complex, but even starting off with something like what type of, and Gabe alluded to this a little bit earlier when he was talking about different types of how you set your campaigns up, and you're talking about, in the case of storage, you're talking about climate storage versus, say, just self-storage. You could see the same thing being done. Let's say you're looking at hotels, and you do a search for, and you have a keyword out there that's, say, vacation hotel, and then you have Tokyo hotels, and then you have financial district hotels in Tokyo, and then you do a specific at the Sheraton in Tokyo on December 1st, right? And you start getting more and more granular, and all those could be paid search terms. The attribution model of, hey, was it a broad term that they came in on to begin with, and then what was the distance between each click? Was it a 1 week in between? Was it 2 days in between? Yeah, you can see there's a completely different element that adds to that that you start looking at, and then we start throwing in all the other sources. The attribution can go a long way. The good news is that there isn't a perfect attribution model. It doesn't exist.
Okay.
That means that, and the reason why it's good news is because
you can always
as long as you're working towards something, exactly, you can always get better. And just taking it one more step that direction means you're getting better than what you were before. As we wrap up here, I want to plug Gabe for him and his company. It's called Adigma.io, Adigma.io. Okay. And that's his website. And they have some tools out there that make building your campaigns and tracking those campaigns, not only with paid search, but you can apply the same tracking components to your social media campaigns and to your email campaigns and your display campaigns, to start to give you some of that, even if it's out of the box reporting that you can start to see some insights to, but definitely building on it from there. That really, and you're seeing more of those where you have, instead of kind of this jumbled mess of campaign structures out there, it's more of a structured data approach to building your campaigns, which makes it a lot more efficient and easy to go through. And you'll see more and more of that as we go forward, I think.
So, Gabe, if a customer listen to our podcast and wants to use your service, how can we contact you, and what kind of level of service would you provide for a client? Can you explain your business a bit?
Definitely. So Scott listed out Adigma.io is the name of the company and the website. You can hop on there, get some insight into some of the tools that we've created and how we help them manage things, as well as there's a contact form on there. A lot of what we do is very specific based off of building out those account structures and managing those elements and pieces and using some of the technology we've created to do some of that at scale, right? So you're talking your 40 locations. I can spin up my tool and have campaigns built in my very unique segmented way that makes optimization and data gathering very simple. I can build that in 24 hours.
Wow.
Versus, huge time spent on building all this campaigns and structures and elements. And it's good for both individuals who are paid search managers themselves at a company that want some of that automation and help scale, as well as makes it really easy to report on, or individuals who don't have any paid search set up at all. That's also a service we provide where we can build out your account structure and then manage on top of that. And part of that comes with all the call tracking, attribution pieces, creating these data sets from our structure that we can start using some data analysis and build out your attribution models, those kinds of pieces. And so it's really a good mesh where we're taking your big data, we're compiling in a way that's very clean and ingestible for a data scientist to take and do some cool learnings off of. And then because we fed them the data in a very segmented, structured way, they will give it back to us in that same format, and we can immediately implement that into our structure.
Big data is the key word of the days, man. I mean, I have so many customers or friends asking me about big data. I guess Gabe is one solution to the puzzle. So if anybody's listening to it, you can feel free to contact. We can leave Gabe's information on our podcast, and then you guys can contact Gabe directly. And any final words we should say to Gabe, Scott?
Just, Gabe, really appreciate you taking a couple minutes to come out and talk to us today and come through things. I love the way you think about things. It's different than anybody else I've ever met, and the results speak for themselves. I know the companies you've been in have been able to kind of successfully grow their search spend and do so positively from a revenue standpoint. And I think it's a lot to do with your approach and how you look at things. So congratulations, and appreciate you taking the time with us tonight.
Awesome. Scott, Kevin, again, appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much. We hope to talk to you again soon. And then we are creating a Facebook page. So if any of the listeners have any questions and all that, maybe we can add you in and you can answer some questions as well in our platform.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Digital to Foot Traffic. Join our mailing list at digitaltofoottraffic.com for more of our digital insights and strategies.
Leave us a review on iTunes or your favorite Android apps and subscribe so we'll show you the second we launch a new episode.